Hello, this is Shelley Ungerank. I am a real estate agent for Heartland Realty in DeSoto, Missouri. And I am doing a series of YouTube videos just talking about, general things that people ask me about real estate and how things work. So this is my overview, kind of a general overview of how things work. Let me just say from the very beginning, you should always talk to your specific real estate agent for clarification or more information on these issues. So this is just sort of like my take of, how these things work and kind of some general information. So one of the things, once you get a contract accepted, I've been trying to kind of go through every phase of the contract, but after you get a contract accepted and you have an inspection period, the next thing that you have is a appraisal done on the property. If you're getting a loan, you don't have a choice. That's built in. Your lender's going to obviously require the appraisal because they want to make sure the house, if you're borrowing $100,000 for the house, they want to make sure the house is worth $100,000. So that's a requirement and a part of your closing cost. That's, you'll talk, I'm sure, to your agent and to your lender about closing cost, and this is a part of your closing cost. Now, if you're buying a house and you're paying cash, then you do not have to get an appraisal done, but you can reserve the right to have an appraisal done because you, even though you're a cash buyer, still want to make sure that you're not overpaying for the house. So you definitely have the option of paying for an appraisal and having one done should you choose to exercise that right. So an appraiser will obviously just make an appointment, go to the house, and there are different, depending on your type of loan, if you're doing a conventional loan, let's just say as opposed to an FHA loan, then you're going to have, it could be the same appraiser, but he's going to have different stipulations, and the house has to meet the guidelines, for FHA. You might, if you're in a rural area, here in Missouri, we do rural development loans that are called USDA. So they all have different guidelines. VA, whatever type of loan you're doing, the appraiser will have to know when he goes to the house what you're doing so he can appraise the house according to your loan type. So that is one reason a lot of people are always like, when they write a contract, does it matter if I switch loan types in the middle of the contract? It absolutely does. So, but anyway, so when you get the appraisal back from your lender, and keep in mind, we as agents don't get copies of an appraisal. You do, because as the buyer, because you're the one that's paying for it. And we don't need a copy of it. All we ever need from the lender is to know that, yes, it appraised out and we're moving forward to a closing date. There was no issues. And if there are issues, then we need to know what they are. And then, of course, we would need a copy of the appraisal because we're going to have to talk to the seller about those issues. So, of course, the main thing on an appraisal that you want to work out is, the price, obviously, to make sure it appraises out so that you can borrow what you, have agreed to on the contract. The other thing that might come up are maybe some stipulations. Again, with FHA, VA, whatever type of loan you're doing, the appraiser has the absolute right to ask for some things to be done. So a lot of times this period and the inspection period can kind of overlap a little bit, but unlike the inspection period where it's negotiable between buyer and seller, with the appraiser, it's not negotiable. If your appraiser says something needs to be done, then that's going to have to be done in order for the loan to get closed. So that is definitely something that the seller would have to do in order for the loan to close, or the contract would be mutually released if you have a seller that just doesn't want to do it. And that can certainly happen. And there are, oddly enough, you could have a seller that doesn't do it because he doesn't believe that those things are necessary, or, is just simply not going to do it. And the contract is mutually released. They get another buyer, maybe even in some cases crazy enough with the same type of loan with a different appraiser who doesn't even have the same stipulations on there. It's definitely, the appraiser has a lot of latitude here as to what they can request and what they're going to be satisfied with. If you get an appraisal back and you take issue with it, you definitely have the right to appeal an appraisal. It's not easy to do, and it doesn't, you don't get things changed real easily. You would definitely have to provide some proof and some backup, some other comps, and argue your point pretty effectively for that to happen. But it's not unheard of that that happens. It's just, it just really depends on the specific situation. If your appraisal does appraise less, let's just say, for the sake of this video, you needed it to appraise at least $100,000, and it appraises at $95,000. What do I do? What happens then? Well, ideally the seller would come down to the $95,000 because that's all it appraised for. That's all that it's, been proven to be worth per the appraisal. So you hope that a seller would agree to that. But in some cases, again, the seller may absolutely feel like that was a bad appraisal and that the house is, well worth the $100,000, if not more. So again, you can argue the point. But if the appraisal is not changed and the buyer still wants to buy the house, then they can bring, in this scenario, the extra $5,000 between the $95,000 and the $100,000 to the table at closing in order to get the house to close. They can bring the gap, what we call the gap money, to the table. This is on top of whatever else they were already agreed to bring to the table. So it's not, you can't, it's a different fee. So if you were already bringing $10,000, now you're going to bring $15,000 to the table if that is something that the buyer, wants to do. So that's just all part of the negotiation and something that has to be talked about when the appraisal comes back. So hopefully that doesn't happen. We're always hoping for an appraisal with nothing to have to be fixed and for the value to come out at contract price or higher. Obviously that's what all parties are looking for, but if it doesn't, those are some of the options you would have to get it to work out. So I hope that this has helped, and if you have any questions, again, check with your agent about your specific situation. Thank you.